Episode 81, Lyrical Ones, episode 81. Alpha, how are you?
I'm doing well. Sunil, welcome to welcome back to the Lyrical Ones podcast. Um, our last episode of this year, this calendar year. Um, 81 is a square number. Um, that's right. And so I think I've always liked that number. Um, I'm doing well. I'm keeping warm. Got my native uniform on of a black hoodie variant. Uh, have a few of these, and folks might have seen them over our broadcasts or episodes. And I think right now I'm in a space of things could be things could be worse. I'm glad they are good as they are. Yeah, I am joyful for wellness. I am grateful for this podcast to kind of pull together thoughts and feelings of these last 12 months, which I don't think it's really possible to sum up everything in a short time. But if I look at each month, um, and I just reflect on each month or each season of the year for me, I'm happy for creativity. I'm happy for escapism. Happy for self-actualization. Uh, Grateful for entertainment and media and storytelling and writing. That they are things that I can both create and produce, as well as exchange, share, and consume. Yeah, I'm grateful that I get to experience, all of this with the lyrical ones, and grateful to be here one last week. And I think we learn all the time that it's very fortunate to make it to the morning.
Because it cannot always be night.
So
Yeah, I feel you. Um, it is good to. I ain't gonna say what's good. I'm gonna just say, right. You got another day. We got another day. I say that in contrast to people we have lost. Whether you have lost someone or you haven't, there's been loss. Um, whether it's a fire burning and people getting caught into it, whether it was, someone acting out in violence in a different state or a different country, there's been loss. It's to the degree of how much you are impacted by it. I will say for myself, I'm greatly impacted by loss on many, many levels. Um, and with that in mind, it is imperative for me to maintain my sense of appreciation and gratitude for the moment, to be present, to be alive. Because yes, wellness, if you got it, it's amazing, and if you don't, speaking to kind of the past couple days I've had, I made a turkey, played myself because I thought this was just a small turkey. Turns out this was just a body of a turkey with no limbs. So I meant to brine it. I didn't brine it. So I was like, you know what? We gonna have to figure this out. I'm gonna turn this into sandwich meat. And so I was making sandwiches out of it. And then I was like, I'm gonna get some chicken, eat that for lunch, eat chicken. Somewhere between the concoction of those two things, I just had enough of eating. And I was like, I'm done. I don't feel good. And it made me feel unwell. I did not feel well. I was like, ugh, this is not cool. And it was like this feeling of like I consumed too much. I ate too much. I was pushing myself to limits for like just arbitrary reasons. It was like, hey, you know those organic chicken thighs you've been eating? Here's some inorganic ones. Eat the same amount, even though the inorganic ones are gigantic. They're huge. Two inorganic is just over three organic, but I was eating three inorganic. Bad move. Choices, decision, wasn't really thinking. I just said it's three, not the volume, not the quantity of how much is in each portion. Nah, nah, nah. We going from this to this. It's one. I'm just gonna go from three to three. Nah, nah, nah. So wellness. Because yes, now I feel better. Because I was like, reduce the intake, reduce the consumption, change how you eat it. I feel better. I feel great. Before, uh, not at all. So I am appreciative of this moment. This is a Thursday rather than the usual Wednesday that we operate on. I usually plan around like my schedule, so I don't work out on Wednesday nights. I exercise my lyrical capabilities, and that's where I burn my calories. Is here. But since we navigated, I was able to change everything around and get my wellness going, and I feel great. So yeah, episode 81 of the Lyrical Ones, the last one of the year, to sum up 12 months. Man, we just let people get away with everything. We just, man, this I, unpopular opinions, as I've been told, is a project I'm gonna put out soon. Thank you, Affluent. And unpopular opinion. I feel like as a collective whole, we just be letting people get away with all kinds of stuff. We hold somebody accountable, but then we forget there's a whole system that made this person who they are and allowed them to get to this point. And changing the system is one thing, but convicting these people, if that if that gave people any sense of satisfaction or gratification this past year, I've seen it in a multitude, in a spectrum, in a array of different like methods, right? It's like, oh, hey, well, let's change the system. No, let's see, can we convict somebody? We convicted them. Yeah, man, we convicted. Did we change the system? No. Did we still create this process that allows people to operate in ways that are harmful? Of course. And so here we are at the end of the year. And as I reflect on that, it only further solidifies my need for autonomy and control to be as independent as relying on myself as possible. And it's so against my nature because I'm not one to be driven by the individualism or the individualist approach of things. I am very much a communal and community driven person. I've been at service to my community since I've been a part of my community, and I will continue to find ways to be a service to others and to show up and to provide resources and opportunities for those that may not have the access. I will find a way, but I will not continue to do it in the same way as this past year and many years before it. So, 2021, I love you. I appreciate you. Thank you for showing me so much. But fool me once, shame on me. Fool me twice, ain't gonna fool me again.
Yeah, so I'm reminded that 2021 is pronounced 2020 has won. Um, I am reminded that 2022 is pronounced 2020 also. And I think there's a lot of themes that became prevalent and became came to the forefront of the public's attention. It's very interesting how within the pandemic people found ways to protest. Um, in in 1 year, well, really from March to December, more than they had on the planet, more than they had protested ever in a year. Um, and then it's very telling that capitalism is basically around to keep people busy. Um, as soon as people stopped working and stopped moving and got to see the world and the country and society for what it was, folks was not happy with it. Uh, so people got sent back to work, got sent back to the fields to keep busy, to keep their mouth shut, uh, and to be divided. And I think, if anything, I hope that moving into the next 12 months, folks remember how jacked up the system that creates hardship is the same system that creates victims and villains, and it's the same system that creates loopholes for people doing malicious things uh, can thrive. And I think we're coming to a space where we're learning that kindness is the better way to do business, and it's the better way to be successful and to reach goals, either as individual or on a team. And for a long time, that was not the case, and we're still rooting out a lot of that um, disrespect, a lot of that belittling, uh, diminishing um, language that keeps people pressed down and doesn't lift people up. Um, but it's interesting that you know all people needed to do was to go back to work to not talk about how bad things were. And when you're comfortable, the smallest things can bother you. But when you're in survival mode and you're uncomfortable, like, everything is relative. So when you starving and you get a Starbucks coffee and the milk is wrong, it's not as big a deal as having a Starbucks coffee in the first place. Um, but when life is good and somebody messes up your order, it ruins your day. Uh, and so I don't pray that we have more bad days. I think we I would want us to be aware that there are a lot of people having tougher days around us, and we can all work to see the world through the eyes of the have-nots, and then those who navigate in a scarcity mindset to see abundance in their approach to the world, that they don't have to think that their resources or their needs being met be short lived. Um, yeah, I think we can do better going into the next year as a planet, um, as humanity, as we rep for humans on this planet, and show the rest of the galaxy that last year wasn't a fluke.
Last year wasn't a fluke. Yeah, you're right. We had Edgar. I think it's Maria. Say VASF.tech. That was a comment we had that came in from YouTube from Edgar. Shout out to Edgar for watching. As we talk about the year that was and kind of our own observation, uh, criticism, analysis, it's all valid, right? And whether or not you agree or don't agree, it's okay. It's okay. It really is. We do live in a society right now where it might be hard for people to conceptualize that it's okay to have a difference in opinion.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And I'm saying that because I've heard people speak out or not speak at all to avoid conflict, confrontation. When we live in conflict, we are living with the idea that, yeah, like you were saying, when you have a way to scale things, I got a Starbucks order, the milk is wrong. I'm starving, so you know what? I'm gonna just rock with it, right? I need this. So as much as my preference is different, or as much as I prefer this not to be the case, I'm gonna minimize my preference in light of my need, which is sustenance. Whereas most times it's like I'm up right now, and because this order is wrong, I'm not even thinking about me being up right now. I'm thinking about you made my order wrong, which now has become the focal point of my day. I've seen this happen so many times where people will project the outcome of the day before the day has ever like been lived. Oh,
Yeah.
my day is ruined. Oh, it looks like it's going to be a bad day. Your perception is the key. Now, I'm not going to hold back. I cannot stand self-limiting beliefs. And that goes in the vehicle of self-limiting beliefs. When you then start to say, my day gonna be bad, right? Like, I don't know when this became a thing when you talk and start clapping your hands, but that's the thing. It just happened, right? I observed it and then I absorbed it, right? I was observing a situation, I absorbed it. When people have self-limiting beliefs and I observe it, it's easy to absorb it. It's easy to take that in. And I'm at a point now where I refuse to, where I have to maintain distance and space because I do live in a life of confrontation and conflict. I'm not going to sit up here and put on the facade that it is all golden, crispy, delicious fried chickenness. It's not. There's things that are going on that are happening that to me are worthy of change, worthy of a difference.
Mm,
And so, in my mind and how I operate, and I'm proactive and active, I'm constantly learning about different things, different systems, different means that we all operate within. I've referred to it many times before, and I'll keep referring to it because we are dependent on these things. There is an education system that is central to almost every single one of our lives. If you haven't had a day in school, then you are an anomaly. You are an outlier. You are on the outside, and And I would be so interested to hear your perspective on what life is like outside of an education system, whether it's homeschooling, whether it's, you didn't have any of those things, right? You didn't have no access to education. That's amazing. But in my vision, in my perspective, in my observation, my experience, school is so central to the operation of a lot. To the point that, like, okay, yeah, if you in the city, SF, San Francisco, for those that don't know, yeah, they might say, oh, you're truant, and it might not go that far, right? But in some other counties, your parents definitely can get a fine or can get some type of legal threat. I know I've been in a police car in other counties just because I wasn't at school. I know I've been harassed and accosted by the police because of the time that I was outside, right? So then that's one point. The other part, which is tied to that, right? When I say police, those are those that enforce policy. The legal system, right? With the legal system, it literally determines your freedom, but we have no access to understanding the bounds. We just know don't kill people, don't steal. But there's a lot of details and a lot of specifics that go into that where some people can get away with those things and nothing happens, right? It's like, oh, they're stealing from Walgreens. They're taking all the products out of the stores. Oh my God. And then we go talk to the CEOs who've been gouging the profits and been taking money away from their workers. Silence. Thomas Anderson. Can't say nothing, right? So that's the legal system, right? So I do my earnest to navigate as sustainably as I can these systems, right? Which then brings me to healthcare. These three systems I see is ever prevalent, ever relevant, ever pressing to this exact moment. The 2020 has won, right? Those three elements are like all around me in every capacity, right? It's where you get your access to information from. It's how you take in the information that you have access to. It is your health. It is your vitality, your wellness, your well being. What is it that you're doing to take care of yourself? Because we're living currently ongoing pandemic. And for me, before this was a thing, because as I've said before, when this whole thing went down, I was like, oh, we here. Let's go. Because I was waiting for a zombie apocalypse. This looks kind of close. Catastrophic events is happening. What we got to do, right? So I'm pressing for something that is more sustainable, something that is healthy, something that adds life to or the quality of life to others because I've heard enough from people who have been in a deficit, who have been harmed, who have not had the best access to wellness and vitality to know that these three systems impact that greatly. And these three systems need change. Now, there are people who maybe in these three systems are able to abuse it, misuse it, harm others by the manipulation or the usage of these systems. And as you know, as we've mentioned or kind of highlighted, right? There's people who will like, oh, I'm gonna get over on you. I'm gonna harm you because it benefits me, right? Whether that benefit is real benefit or if it's just a continuation of harm, it's a cycle of harm. But that's the thing. That's like that's where we at right now. We've been there. It's been going on. It's gone challenged to a certain degree, to an incremental. But for me, as I've often stated, totality is necessary for my change. It may not be the change for others, which is funny enough. Me now saying that out loud is like referencing a movie that I don't like because it was a theme in it. Right? It's like, what's the truth for me? What's the truth for you? Well, the truth for me is breaking away from the standard. The truth for others may be staying within the standard. And I totally understand that. I think there's room for both. I think there's room for people who want to keep drinking the slow Kool Aid of toxicity that is drip fed and maintains and sustains you. And then there's room for people who are looking for something different, who are looking for something that's an alternative. Hence, lyrical ones. Hence, lyrical opposition. Opposition being a key word, right? It's not to oppose out of a sense of a negative connotation or to be disruptive to your well-being. It's opposition to what are the systems that are in place that are harmful, and then how do we find as either individuals or a collective or a community or a family something that presents itself as an alternative to the harmful wave that is coming, because it's a harmful wave, whether you want to acknowledge it or not, right? Like, if you lost someone in this pandemic due to the pandemic, that's harm. With you, if you've seen someone get harmed physically or verbally, that's still harm. Whether it's the food you put in your body that makes your stomach feel upset, or the fact you don't have food to put in your body, that's harm. Whether you're scared about where you're going to live or how you're going to be able to live, or your job just isn't befitting to you, or you're going through your job because it's a means to an end and not a means to your wellness, right? It's like, oh, I know I got to deal with this headache. I know I got to deal with this person who makes me feel less than, or literally hurts my feelings, right? Like, so often we be like, oh, yeah, so it's just your feelings, which are your regulatory ability to take that coffee and say, I'm gonna have a good day, despite this being the wrong order, right? My whole day sucks because your feelings you didn't pay attention to. Your whole day sucks because you kept trying to minimize how you feel, and you listen to others and they sold you that lie. They got you hyped up on this. Oh, it's just your feelings. Get over your feelings. Get over it. But you take it with you. You walk with it. You in it. You living in it. That's who you are. And then what happens? You get that coffee. You ruined my whole day. I hate you. I can't stand you. I hope you die. Right? Oh, my whole day's ruined. You know what? I can't listen to that right now. No, I can't. I'm sorry. I got an attitude. My child, I cannot listen to you, my child, because you need me, and I ain't take enough time to need myself. So, what I'm gonna do? Minimize my feelings, minimize your feelings, continue this perpetual toxicity of slow drip feed of Kool-Aid that's made of cyanide and toxics, and we just gonna keep going. But there's alternative. There's a place to acknowledge that and say, you know what? I want something different. I want something that gives me more, that gives me love, that gives me joy. I can do that. I need encouragement. I need a community. Hence, Lyrical Ones, episode 81. Into 2021, a lot of ones going on, right?
Yeah.
Hence,
Yeah.
80s babies, 81. This might not get this again.
It's 21st century. Um, it's interesting because you can say that complacency is harm when the smallest thing can, ruin, your perspective, or mangle, distort your perspective and your approach in a negative way. You could say that going to a job where where you're being threatened to be fired every day, is harmful. When you not know if you're gonna have your job from one day to the next, is harmful. You could say that going to a job where you have a superior, or not superior, but a supervisor who either micromanages or disrespects or demeans, um, passive aggressive, uses microaggressions, like even in the job stability, you can still be existing, in harm. And none of it is easy. But I think when we can build routines of reflection and honesty about our needs, um, then we can say that this situation is not what I need. This situation, is not good enough for me. This situation is hurting me. And those three systems that you mentioned, that you referred to, they can all kill you, separately or together. Um, they can set each other up for the others to finish you off, or they can they can They can kill you, harm you, debilitate you, injure you, just on what you know or don't know about how they work. Um, and neither system does a good job of teaching you about the other system. Um, Healthcare doesn't teach you about the law or education. Education doesn't really teach you about healthcare or the law. The law doesn't really teach you about education or healthcare. Um, you don't really find out until you messed up, according to them, or until you're in their crosshairs. Um, you don't really find out, how bad it is until your freedoms are threatened, and then you're scrambling for support, and none of those systems told you that you needed support. But when you're in over your head, you know, some people make rash decisions to try to oppose the system, and others, you know, accept that the system has an agenda, and they try to survive, as best they can through that agenda. And and when we talk about lyrical opposition, it's um, not just opposing what is. It's also celebrating that we have opposing love languages, that we have opposing worldviews, that we have opposing perspectives, and celebrating those differences that differ, that vary, and are contrary to what each of us may think or believe, that we could find understanding in the diversity of our worldviews, that we don't have to agree with each other. We can oppose each other and still vibe. We can oppose each other and build. We can oppose each other and move forward. Um, and I think, anyone who's listening, you don't have to agree with us, but it doesn't stop us from wanting to build with you or move forward with you.
Sometimes you don't agree with us because you don't agree with yourself. And that's okay. That sometimes is okay. Now, whether you can acknowledge it, because I think a part and a piece of being in opposition is also being in opposition to yourself, to challenge yourself, not to put yourself down, not to belittle yourself, but to be critical of yourself, critical in yourself that helps you identify what do you really need or want to do. And then how do you accomplish that? Now, your comfort zone, it really isn't your comfort zone. Because if your comfort zone is the path of least resistance, then can you acknowledge that you live in a world where there's a lot of resistance? Not for everyone, but maybe for you, maybe for some. Maybe there's some resistance in some capacity. Now, I'm saying this because people gonna make New Year's resolutions,
Hmm.
and it'll be cool for like a week or two, maybe a month. What I see as change isn't bound by time, it's bound by the present moment. It's bound by my discipline to the present moment. When my discipline and the present moment are in a cohesiveness, when they work together, change manifests. Change, people love to, I've been hearing that word for the past couple of years. You got to manifest it. Affirmations. Okay, well, let me use your words against you. To manifest what it is that you're looking for, to affirm it, the change happens today. It won't happen tomorrow. It won't happen a week from now, right? Oh, I'm going to change the way I eat. You could do that in so many different ways with how much you eat, with what you are eating, with what is available to you in the moment, right? Think about it. Challenge yourself. Be the opposition to yourself to think critically about what it is that you could do differently to change the way you eat. Oh no, no, I gotta start a juice cleanse. I gotta start the juice cleanse. Oh, but the juice cleanse ain't gonna make it in time because right now it's just a lot of orders and I'm gonna have to wait 2 weeks because I don't really got it like that right now. Okay, fine. 2 weeks change gonna come. You right. Change gonna come in 2 weeks, not right now. Right? I need to change the way I sleep. The intention is right now in the moment, what am I going to do to make that happen? Not because it's going to be flawless and it's going to be perfect the first time. It's because I'm going to fail. And I'm going to accept that failure and learn from that failure to either find a new failure or find success and not have failure be hinged upon my self esteem. My personal failure is not hinged on my self esteem. My personal failure is hinged on, am I retaining the information from the failure to learn a valuable lesson? Because if I'm able to learn a valuable lesson, it has less to do with my self esteem and it has more to do with my self worth. But self esteem and self worth, aren't they intertwined? They don't have to be because your perception creates the reality. Your perception, how you perceive it, right? If I sit up here and I say, you know what, my self value is going to be more than my self esteem, right? My self esteem is going to be tied to my confidence, and my confidence is going to be tied to my discipline. I'm the one that's making the connections, no one else. I change that. I make that possible. I can add value or say I don't hold value in any of those things because I can change at any given moment, just as you can change. Anyone can change, right? Because again, the end of the year, we're going to make New Year's resolutions. I'm going to go to the gym.
I'm not.
I mean, I'm not either. Like I every day something to change, something to make something gonna happen, and I'm gonna make it happen. That's it's not because the year changed. Like 2019 went to 2020, 2020 went to 2021, 2021 is gonna go to 2022. And the thing that will have changed is whatever I have decided to change, whatever I have decided to make a difference in. That's me expanding my comfort. That's me expanding my levels of abilities. That's me expanding. But it isn't necessarily me saying, oh, it's the new year. It's the new year. Oh, because of that, now I need to change. No, what happened is I've been through some things, I've learned some things, and I've seen what is for me and what I don't want for myself. And those are the basis of how I operate, not because it's a new year. No, no, every day is a new year. Every day is a new year. Every day is a new year. Matter of fact, every second is a new year. But that's the thing, right? We don't value it in that way. We wait until the societal conundrum of it's darker longer and we're sadder. So we're avoiding every bit of our sadness by putting a bunch of lights around the house, having a bunch of forced celebrations to then say, this pagan tree that we're going to set ablaze of glory is going to be everything I need to make me feel good. And that's okay. That's good. But don't lose sight of the fact that you may be pushing off something, you may be minimizing something, you may be saying to yourself, oh, I'm maybe putting too much importance on this because those other 364 days a year, those other 363, because then we can throw in the shooting of the stars and the bright lights and the vibrant explosions of fireworks. Am I treating every day with that same level of intentionality, of praise, of value, of love, of adoration, admiration, of intentionality to be present? Right?
Well,
Oh,
now,
remember New
now I'm
Year's? That
not.
was
It's not.
popping.
It's not in my budget. I can't afford fireworks all year round. I can't afford to have these lights on
Oh
all year
no.
all year round. So I can't.
You
I
can't have
can't. I
that live
can't do
within
that.
you. You can't carry that same energy and apply that to the interactions of the people around you. You can't apply that to the present moment of what you're doing, whether it's you're at work, you're reading a book, you're going to school, you're spending time with a loved one. You can't give that same amount of energy or that same amount of attention and focus to that present moment. Oh, that's right, because there ain't no fireworks, there ain't no lights. My bad. My bad. Change gonna come. Change gonna come. Change gonna come.
Yeah, but like for me, like it took me being active to to find to find my motivation to stay active. It didn't start from, oh, I'm not doing anything in this NFT space, and so I'm motivated to win in a win in a space that I have no knowledge of, where it actually took me being involved within the space to define what success, what winning was for me, um, and not have it look like anyone else's win or success. Um, and it's the same thing with wellness. Um, Taking care of myself helped me decide what what was important to me. Before I started taking care of myself, I couldn't define and say this is a priority. These are the things that I need. Um, like having an intention was one thing, talking about it is something else. But until I started, you know, to implement something before it was a routine, just to initiate, then I could measure and say how much is this taking out of me? How much is this giving back to me? How much is this rejuvenating me? How much is this enriching my life or fulfilling for me? But I had to start first, and then I had my motivations, like wanting to win at a game you never won doesn't have as much weight as winning for a long time. And so that's why it's always interesting to see people who have long careers in sports wanting to stay in the game, right? So like in the NFL this year, Aaron Rodgers is leading quarterback Aaron Rodgers for the Packers is leading the the MVP race and for the second year in a row. And he's contemplating retiring. But he says, I want to retire at the top of my game. I don't want to retire as a bum, um, or as a liability to my team. And it's interesting to be in that space where he's redefining what success means for him. As he heads toward the end of his career, where at the beginning of his career, right, success might have been, something else, right, like winning the Super Bowl or passing for certain many yards, certain number of yards, or just being a starter on the team, as he had to play behind somebody before he could get that starting position. And so now that he's got the starting position, that no longer defines, what success means to him, right? It's his job to lose. But then also there's a standard now that he holds himself to, and he's motivated to keep that standard, but he had to create that standard first. And whenever we created a standard, you know, depending on how it serves us, we can then create that motivation, develop that motivation to keep that standard. It also happens in a negative way, where we allow standards of harm, routines of harm, to exist as norms in our life, and because they're familiar, we say, okay, this is something I'm gonna keep around, even though it's hurting me or the people around me, or it's causing more conflict in my life than I even have the bandwidth for, or more conflict than the people who love me want to interact with me. But because it's the way I know how to interact with people, I'm going to hold on to that behavior, that that methodology, that ethos, and I think that's what we see with bigotry and racism. It's like people know it causes harm, they know language causes harm, and they're choosing to show up in a way that hurts people because their their fallback line is this is how I grew up, or this is how I was raised, or I've been doing this for so long, right? It's like me choosing to start a family and I say, well, this is how I was raised, so this is the only way I know. And that's bogus. Like, because I can literally learn any way to operate at any time. I can choose different at any time, especially because it's my first time being a parent. So I can choose to do something that I've never done before and do it in a way I've never seen before. Right? It's like if I have a history of NFL receivers playing the game to look back on and reflect on, I can say, well, I never seen somebody do this, or I never seen somebody celebrate this way, or I never seen nobody do this before. Doesn't mean it hasn't been done, but I can say I'm gonna choose to play different, or I'm gonna choose to play unique to me. What's comfortable for me, and I can choose that right at any time. And initiating that choice helps define what winning, what success means for you, and then also helps motivate you to keep it up, to keep that standard.
Back on it then. To acknowledge what you said, the bogusness of people who, it's one of those situations where I was raised in hatred. That's how I was raised, right? That's my comfort. I said, right, your comfort ain't always your comfort. So to go into it, right, to to expand that perspective, because I've heard it many, many times. And because I myself was raised in some level of conflict or confrontation in a household that was somewhat unhealthy, maybe it didn't have the best access to education on relationships, communication, and boundaries. But I learned for me to see both sides in an argument because I was very vocal as a child. So I could speak to both people's needs. I could see where they're coming from, right? So in this sense of legacy and heritage, a heritage based on hate, your identity is entwined with the concept of hatred, where that's what you love. You love hatred, right? You've been passed down this belief system that is based around hating someone, right? Now, if we break it down and we really look at it, right, a lot of racist bigots, they often come from a losing side, right? We could take it as a reflection of this year. Let's take it all the way back to January 6th. My biggest observation was the flags that were waved around at the the federal capital, right? This is the country's capital, Washington D.C. The flags that were waved around. We had all losers, right? We had Trump who just lost his election, right? We had the Nazi flag and we had the Confederate flag, right? These are three flags that represent three different losing factions. And there's nothing wrong with losing, right? Like you were saying, the value system on someone who has won a lot versus the value system who's lost constantly and then gets a win, right? It's experienced differently because that's been the experience, right? So there's nothing wrong with taking a loss. There's nothing wrong with losing, right? It's how you choose to lose and how you reflect and remember that loss. Now, we've stated on this podcast before, I may be butchering the name, but Google can always do a better job than me of proliferating the truth. I believe it was the Sisters of the South or the Sisterhood of the South, right? That was instrumental in developing the education system in the South that continued to perpetuate these stereotypes and this propaganda like education that perpetuated the losing side, right, as something to hold in value, even though they lost, right? Even though that's a sense of, I wouldn't say heresy, right? But it is a sense of going against, right, your country, right? You are going in literally like against the wave of what your country is about, right? By saying, you know what, the side that lost, we're going to continue to push and promote, and we're going to romanticize it, and we're going to relive it, and we're going to encapsulate it. And there's a piece of it that has hatred involved, right? Hatred for the fact that we lost a war, hatred for the fact that we lost out on some valuable resources, which were human, right? Human capital is what we lost out on, right? That it was a sense of segregation and divisiveness, right? That we had this existence that was taken away from us, right? We're not going to say or we could say, right, that there were many, many reasons why this war was necessary, right? Economic, right? There was a big economic piece that had nothing to do with black people or black lives, for that matter. It had more to do with, the North had a conceptualization of wealth and the South had a conceptualization of wealth. And someone needed to win. Now, with that came, yes, the free black people. We're gonna free slaves, right? Even though when you look at the numbers and you look at the years and you look at the time and you look at what's been going on, you have to really ask yourself, what is free, right? Because some ain't free. All is free. Some is some is not free. So when we look at this, right, and we got these people who hold on to these hatred rhetoric and this belief system that is filled with so much turmoil and anger, and they don't have the best education because their education is coming from a skewed perspective that is less about them being informed and them being able to develop in a way that is whole, but more in a way that is encapsulated in a very siloed, insulated, incremental phase, right? It's like, we're going to keep you perspective in this box. The world is so expansive and so big, but we don't care about the world. We only care about this little box we want to keep you in. So now you hating. Now you've acted out in hatred. Now you've taken a life, right? Now you've you thought you was gonna get away with it. And now we see that you not, because why? It was wrong. It was wrong, right? You're taking a life based out of your hatred, right? Someone has sent me a joke, and it was this comedian, and he said, you know, police officers, if they fear for their life, right, they can shoot with the intent to kill because they fear for their life. And what they said was, when I call 911, I tell them to send firefighters. I need firefighters because I ain't never heard of a firefighter who runs into a burning building, right? Fire is something that a lot of people are afraid of. But because you're a firefighter, you're going to run into a burning building with an axe. And he was like, I ain't never heard of a firefighter chopping off somebody's head with an axe, right? Now, that's a critique on I feared for my life, that statement, right? I thought he was reaching for a weapon. He perceived it was perceived as a threat. I was scared. Now, just proportionally speaking in numbers, right? It's like, if we know that you are afraid of black people, then why are we not asking you what you afraid of? Why are we not putting a fear factor test on you being a person who has the ability to kill at will, right? But again, this goes back to that concept of, well, can you relearn? Can you be educated? Can you? Now, of course, anyone can, but it has to stem from the belief that you can. Now, of course, I do believe that there is some part that is whether or not you're introduced in a proper way, right? There's a way to introduce someone to a concept that is foreign that could be positive, and there's a way to do it that is very harsh. There's a
Mm-hmm.
way to do it where it becomes destructive to their sense of well-being and it becomes harmful in its approach, which means that it's not going to take effect, right? It's a Now that I think about it, as I've been learning about language, Children don't learn from correction, children learn from patterns, right? So the child can be corrected, but they're not learning from the correction. They're literally picking up on the patterns you show, the examples in everything you do, not your corrections. This is I'm not going to go into who and where and what. You can look it up yourself. Children learn from patterns, right? They learn from speech patterns, what and how it's used, the context of how it's used, not you correcting them, right? You could correct them all you want to. They're less likely to retain that information as much as the repetitive nature of being immersed into how the patterns are used, right? How it becomes their native tongue. I'm saying that because if they're not learning from your corrections, what's just the disruption of them learning, right? I'm going to stop you in your tracks of learning the pattern. And I'm going to point out this
Hmm.
one thing that I want you to change for my own personal residual trauma that I'm passing down to you because this is what was done to me, right? Even though if I look at the information or care enough to inform myself and realize it's my examples and the examples of the world I immerse you in that's going to be the thing that teaches you how to develop, right? Not the correction, right? That same thing could be applied to our racist bigots because it's not about the correction, it's about them being immersed in an environment where there is diversity, where there is differences in perspective, there's differences in points being made, there's differences in philosophy, philosophical viewpoints, mental capacities, education, bounds, accessibility. There's so much there. But if they're never given the chance to expose themselves or have the exposure to something that could be compassionately educational, then it's very difficult for them to ever even take into account that their hatred may be bogus, right? And I think that's something that is important for people to really pay attention to because that is the same thing that we do to ourselves when we have those self-limiting beliefs. If we never nurture ourselves in the belief that we can do something, then yes, we will never be able to do it because we've already prevented ourselves from the inception of it, right? To say, oh, I can, right? It's different to say, I won't because I don't want to. That's a big difference because there's a preference. You saying that's just what you don't want to do. Okay. But to say I can't means that it's almost beyond your ability, right? And in some cases, there are people where they're unable, right? They are truly unable. They don't have the means. But there's a lot of people where it isn't the basis of the means, it's more of the basis of the will,
It's the
the
pattern.
personal will. Like, just to take it to that example you said about wellness in the physical sense, I tied my physical wellness to Goku. I loved violence, right? I thought violence was beautiful. I still think it's beautiful to some degree. Violence is beautiful in its artistic merit, right? Martial arts, boxing, mixed martial arts, Muay Thai, karate, Kempo, whatever you want to say, right? There's a beauty in this ability to use your body in a way that is violent. And I'm saying that because when I was learning about my relationship to my health, that became centerpiece. It became so compelling for me to make a transformation because that's what I valued. I valued it since a kid. I love the Ninja Turtles. I love the Power Rangers. I love the G.I. Joes. I love wrestling. I loved all these different things. And what I realized, especially with Goku, is if you work out, you'll get stronger. If you regiment yourself to become better and you believe you'll be better, then you'll get better. And then you start doing amazing things. So for me, it was like, oh, we're going to go train. And in my mind, this is Dragon Ball Z. So when we go practice for football, I'm going to outwork everybody around me. And if I can't outwork everybody around me, I'm going to try. I'm going to push myself. I'm going to go beyond my bounds. I'm going to stretch more. I'm going to do that extra push up. I'm going to apply myself in ways because that's what I had value in. So as I started to develop this routine, and then I got further away from high school and being an adult and realizing, oh, I don't have this massive social circle of people to help with this. Oh, we all playing football? I'm gonna go with y'all. Didn't have that. So what do? You start to find things that help increase that, right? Maybe you find a friend, maybe you build a community, maybe you see if there's anybody else who's interested in their health like you are. And through that process of navigating those relationships, you start to identify what is good for you What do you like to do? And then it becomes a thing where for me now, I can work out on my own and I can work out with others, right? But it's a part of my identity, it's a part of my value system where I'm not willing to budge, where I'm not willing to negotiate, that I have to do this. And that's how I treat it. I give it that care, that attention. Most people will say to me, and they've said this so many times, and I relish in when they say it. Wait until it's your turn. You ain't gonna be doing that when it's your turn to do this or when you got to do that. You ain't gonna be doing that when you do this. When you get married or when you got a girlfriend or you ain't gonna be able to do all that. Still doing it, right? They throw that in my face to say, "Oh, when you got to work full time, when do you have time to do this?" I make time. The time is there. I make the time for it. I don't limit myself because of convenience or comfort. I challenge myself. I oppose those notions to say I got to go harder, to say that I got to push myself past that level of whatever the boundary or the limitation is, to say I got to go that extra mile. I don't like Brussels sprouts. I need to learn what is my relationship with Brussels sprouts. What is my relationship to spinach or kale or whatever the thing is that's going to give me that extra piece of vitality, health, or nutrition that I'm not getting? Because when I go to the doctor, right, like you said, right, it's not until you mess up that, do you know what you did back there? Did you notice what you did at that stop sign? We see that your blood pressure is real high. When was you going to tell me to, like, when were you going to routinely tell me, to teach me, to show me that I could retain this information on how to treat my blood pressure right? Because Jack in the Box sure is good, and I got access to it, right? You said there's three systems that there. They could use the system to get you with one, right? They could put you in an environment in a community where maybe you don't have access to the best healthcare. Healthcare is food, it is nutrition. So that means if you don't have proper nutrition within your vicinity, let alone the education to know what nutrition you really need, right? You now down two, right? Your education and your healthcare system are failing you because they put you in an environment where, one, the information isn't there, and then the accessibility to the actual thing isn't there, right? So what do? You might have to double down on your belief system and you to determine, you know what, I'm going to change that. I'm not saying it's easy. I'm not saying that at all. It's not easy. But it is a thing to say that easy becomes hard and then hard becomes impossible. But if you only focus on easy, you'll never get to hard, and impossible is always going to be away from you. So I'm just saying some things to think about.
I respect it. It's not. It's not. It's not easy, to create the pattern, but it can be practical. And I think as we move into the next calendar year, we can, commit to patterns um, that that help us while acknowledging the patterns that harm us, and harm others, and then just acknowledge patterns that are good for us and celebrate those as well, and say, I did a good job at this, all year. I did a good job, in the last month. I did a good job this week. I did a good job today. And this is something that I want to continue to do, um, because it's good for me. Um, and it's something I committed to, and I can see how it's helping me. Um, just like when we say, oh, well, I don't want this in my life, because I can see how it's harming me. Uh, but a lot of times when we're doing it by ourselves, we can dismiss its impact. Um, if it's not something that others can see, it's really hard to switch it up. And it's important that we we find the communities that you know we trust to be our authentic self, so that we can improve through our interactions and how we navigate through different stressors, because how we navigate through those stressors determines how we interact with people, determines how we treat people, determines how we interact with the barista, um, or the ticket taker at a sports event, or the cashier. And we gotta continue to say, oh, I can learn different. I can change the pattern by interacting with people who who are seeing the world through different lenses. The same way I have never seen my face. I've seen reflections in my face. I've seen images, but I've never looked at my face myself, right? And so for the people who see me, give them a chance to see the authentic me and to show up in a way that, that I can be proud of.
I like what you said because then it converted to something else. Practical patterns promote prosperity. It's the practicality. It's practical patterns. I think it's so key. Practicality. It's like the paramount part. It it's just it's so it's the je ne sais quoi of it is it's right there. It's on point for all P's. Oh man, it's something to be said, right, about never seeing your face or never truly hearing your voice. Right? You hear it in your head. You don't hear it as others hear it. Right? It's not the same. Most of you will know when you've heard a recording of yourself and you're like, who is that? That's you. It is different because what you are hearing is from the source, right? You are hearing it as it is manifesting, as it's created. Others hear it after it's been produced, right? The end result. It's two different sounds. The same as your face. You, unless you're very vain and vanity is your preference or your passion, you may not look at your face that much. You may not take enough time to really acknowledge your face. You know your face, but others will see your face more than you see your face, right? Think about being in class, what it meant to be in class. Your teacher probably saw your face more than you saw your face, right? I don't know how many reflections you really had to get a clear look at your face as you went through the day of a first grader to then say, who sees my face more than I do, right? Who's really seeing my face? As you play kickball or foursquare, who is really seeing my face? Because I'm not seeing my face as much as the person in front of me, right? It is something to be said about that because is that is everything. That awareness, that sense of being a person that is giving and not even acknowledging what you're giving, not even knowing what you're giving, not knowing that the expression on your face communicates something, not knowing that what you're feeling will then lead to the expression that is being communicated for someone else to receive as they observe and absorb what you are giving. It is incredible because, yes, I put a mask on my face and I do see the mask a lot. So, in some ways, I get to see my face a lot. In some ways, no one gets to see my face at all. And that's the thing, right? It's a level of intentionality as we are forced to wear masks for the sense of safety, right? In this context of the year 2021, as it comes to the close, we continue to wear masks, whether that's figurative or literally. Are you mindful of what's on that mask or what that mask is, figuratively and literally? Because I do think there's something to be said about that level of awareness, the practicalness of knowing that yes, your face is as service to the sun. It is a service to the light. It is a service to the eyes that witness it everywhere you go and who you spend your time with. and that there's so much to be read, whether it's spoken or unspoken, that you probably should pay attention to. Because yes, you are giving as much as you are getting. And I think that yeah, that's such a noteworthy thing. I hope that it, as much as it's been profound for me, keeping with the peace, I hope that it is profound for others, that they are able to really understand the richness of what that means to acknowledge your face. I mean, Alfluent, what do you got for the people of episode 81, Lyrical Ones, as we start to come to a close of not only the year, but this episode as well?
Um, I think what's most important for me right now is finding as many ways to rest as possible and infusing them into a routine. And so I hope that others can find ways to rest that they may also, you know, look after themselves.
That's real. Rest is necessary. We promote it often here on Lyrical Ones. Um, it's you need it. We all need it. People, if you're listening, be intentional with your rest. Make sure that you are giving the careful consideration to your rest, and that you're giving that to others around you or whoever's in your vicinity, because rest means so much, and it is often minimized to I need to for waking back up instead of I need to because it's good for me. So, yeah, get rest. Rest is necessary. Stay hydrated, stay warm. Whether you on the East Coast dealing with the cold, or you on the West Coast dealing with the cold, or you somewhere in between, stay warm. And often, as we often do, as I struggle to find everything I need at this time, because it is that time. Uh, yeah, rest is paramount. It's so needed. You know what's played? Like, this is played. This is so played. Like, that's where we at right now. We at that part. That part where we at.
Are we advertising that?
No, we ain't advertising. It was hope. I
Oh,
wasn't
okay.
backwards. Look, they got me. Okay, they ain't got all of us, but they got me. And I'm not saying they got to get you too. And when I say that, I mean the apple that they bit out of. The knowledge, the apple of knowledge. It gets deep metaphors. You know what I'm saying? Like it be all kinds of things people don't really trip. You know what I'm saying? It's all around you. I ain't get to the tree, but supposedly somebody did. So that's how I'm gonna keep it. But as we have to do it this time, 45378.
one, 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 one. Happy New Year.